Now it's time to continue, and we have reached the panel of experts, and we'll hear some professors, scholars, and different analysis of everything that has been happening in Gaza for the past 2 years and longer. So we are at the hearings and root causes. That is the name of this section of today's conference. So the first speaker is Avi Shlaim, and he will be speaking about Zionist Settler-Colonialism.
The Zionist movement was a settler-colonial movement, and Israel is a settler-colonial state. The logic of settler-colonialism is the elimination of the natives as a prelude to taking over the land and its resources. The undeclared but real objective of the Zionist movement from the beginning has been to build a Jewish state on as large part of historic Palestine as possible, with as few Arabs inside its borders as possible. Today, Israel effectively controls 100% of historic Palestine. There is an Arabic saying that something that starts crooked remains crooked. The Zionist movement could not have achieved this amazing degree of success without the support of Western imperialism. Noam Chomsky noted that settler colonialism is the most extreme and vicious form of imperialism. For the last century, the Palestinians have been at the receiving ends of Zionist settler colonialism on the one hand and Western imperialism on the other, with Britain playing the leading part until 1948 and America playing the leading part since 1967. In 1917, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration, pledging support for a Jewish state in Palestine. At that time, the Jews were 10% of the population, and they owned only 2% of the land. So the Balfour Declaration was a classic colonial document which completely disregarded the rights and aspirations of the local population. Last month, Britain recognized Palestine. This was welcome, but it was pathetically little, and it was 107 years too late. The story of the British mandate in Palestine is essentially the story of how Britain stole Palestine from the Palestinians and gave it to the Zionists. The cornerstone of mandatory policy was to withhold elections, to avoid democracy, for so long as the Arabs constituted a majority. The Jews only became a majority as a result of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine during the 1948 war. 750,000 Palestinians became refugees, and the name Palestine was wiped off the map. This is the Nakba, the catastrophe. The Nakba, however, is not a one-off event, but an ongoing process of displacement and dispossession of the native population by the colonial power. This process reached its cruel and indeed its sadistic climax with the genocide in Gaza and with the ethnic cleansing of the West Bank in the aftermath of the Hamas attack of the 7th of October. In the Arab world, Israel is widely seen as an illegitimate entity, as an outpost of Western imperialism, as a foreign body planted in the heartland of the Arab world with the intention of dividing and weakening them. This is an oversimplification of history. Nevertheless, it is true that Western support was crucial to the establishment of Israel in 1948 and to the persistence of the colonial empire beyond Israel's original lines since 1967. America is Israel's closest friend and indispensable ally. America gives Israel military aid and diplomatic protection. The problem with American support for Israel is that it is unconditional. It is unconditional. It is not conditional on respecting Palestinian human rights or international law. This is how Israel gets away literally with murder. This is why Israel can continue to act with complete impunity. This is why the international community is unable to call Israel to account for its multiple crimes and egregious violations of international humanitarian law. Benjamin Netanyahu's current government embodies all the most negative aspects of Zionist settler-colonialism. It is the most far-right, reactionary, crudely populist, messianic, overtly racist, and territorially expansionist government in Israel's history. Settler violence has dramatically escalated on the West Bank since the 7th of October, with the encouragement of the government and the protection of the army. The extremists in the government openly declare that their ultimate aim is the formal annexation of the West Bank and Jewish resettlement in Gaza. The government exploited the trauma of the 7th of October to intensify the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. A leaked report of the Israeli Ministry of Intelligence outlined concrete plans for depopulating Gaza. Egyptian opposition prevented Israel from implementing this plan, but it did not prevent Israel from achieving its principal aim, namely to make Gaza uninhabitable. Under Netanyahu's leadership, Israel has also committed the crime of all crimes, genocide. Genocide is not just a legal concept, but a fundamentally moral issue. It is the denial of the right to exist of a whole group of people. Israel's national identity is inextricably linked with the Holocaust. But Israel is no longer the victim, if it has ever been. Whereas in the Second World War, the Jews were the defenseless victims of Nazi Germany, today it's the Palestinians who are the defenseless victims of the Jewish state. In a sense, the war in Gaza is a direct result of the Balfour Declaration. The combination of Zionist settler-colonialism and Western imperialism is the root cause of the Palestinian tragedy. In Gaza, over the last 2 years, the injustice, the immorality, the inhumanity, and indeed the sadism of Zionist settler-colonialism towards the native population have reached a new climax. given the origins of Israel as a settler-colonial state, as Francesca Albanese has pointed in one of her brilliant reports, given the origins of Israel as a settler-colonial state, this was a tragedy foretold. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Avi. Are there any questions from the jury? Sami.
Thank you very much, Avi, for your presentation. Very quick question. If we look at the history of settler-colonial states, particularly France with Algeria, what future do you see of this conflict? Do you see it along these lines or along the lines of South Africa, where they would be settled and try to integrate? What kind of future do you see in light of what you know about the Zionist ideology?
I believe that apartheid is not sustainable into the 21st century. White apartheid in South Africa ended as a result of international pressure, and I believe that eventually Israel will go down the same way. The impulse to change will not come from within. The pressure from outside would push Israel to end the apartheid regime. And I don't believe that partition is a solution to this problem. I don't think that partition was ever a solution from the beginning. It's one unit. And no one suggested in South Africa that you should divide the country into two states, one black and one white. But people are suggesting now that you have two states, one Jewish, one Arab. It has never worked and it will never work, and therefore I advocate one state from the river to the sea with equal rights for all who live in that space, equal freedom and equal rights for all the people who live in that space, regardless of religion and ethnicity.
Thank you very much, Avi. Brilliant.